Oh, all right. This is probably one of the top news stories that's impacting right-wing Twitter today. We have another incident, another very American incident that we are all, unfortunately, all too familiar with. There was a mass shooting that took place at a hockey game yesterday in Rhode Island, and I'm going to go through the details of the situation. I'm going to be covering exactly what took place, and then I'm going to be addressing the misinformation that right-wing media is throwing around. No, this was not an Order of the Nine Angles style mass shooting incident, and the interesting part about it is that even liberal media is also refusing to cover a very important angle here, a very important angle that makes this shooting not as unique as the way that they are presenting it. Obviously, the person, you will find out, was, I think, trans or a cross-dresser. I'm not entirely sure, especially because there's not really like a lot of coverage on it, or a lot of decent coverage on it. Having said that, however, this was yet another instance of right-wing domestic terror, because you will realize very quickly, even when you look at this photo, that the person, regardless of the person wearing a dress in this photo, who is the shooter, has a SS and a Totenkopf tattoo. They were a goddamn Nazi. Not only did this person have a Nazi tattoo, they literally were posting MAGA. They were constantly in the replies of all of these like right wingers. So was Hitler. So what? Not a Marxist. Right of Hitler. Actually, try again. Post-op trans to the right of Hitler. So try again. They were a Nazi that had a higher degree of priority of being a Nazi, in my opinion, than being trans. And it's not even like their account is readily available on Twitter. And I browsed through the account. They were replying to Nick Fuentes over and over again. They were reposting Alex Jones. All of these right-wing figures, they were all up and down the timeline. Here it is. Roberta Dorgano, also known as T-Girl Cuda. Their last retweet was James O'Keefe, Thomas Massey, Alex Jones, Marjorie Taylor Greene, numerous other right-wing accounts that they replied to over and over and over again. Okay, I think had mental issues is correct in this case. While posed, of course, this person was mentally ill. They weren't mentally ill because they were a trans person. They were mentally ill because they were a neo-Nazi. The problem here, of course, is that right-wing Twitter, who this person was very much a part of, by the way, very much a part of, is now turning on the shooter, of course, and being like, oh, it's because this is a Nazi. This is not one of ours. This person is not one of ours. This person had SS tattoos, man. Like, how much more proof do you need? The point is, they were absolutely a huge Nick Fuentes fan. For example, if Lindsey Graham went out and did a shooting, would you think that Lindsey Graham's potential homosexuality would play a role in this? Or do you think Lindsey Graham will be doing a shooting because they're a far-right figure? I don't think anybody would be like, oh, well, there you go, another gay guy doing a mass shooting. You would go, okay, that's a psychopathic Republican that did a family annihilator thing, except Lindsey Graham obviously doesn't have a family. That's the point. But of course, a lot of right-wing figures that were firmly a part of this person's community and advocacy work have turned around to say, oh, well, this person was trans, that's why they did it. Ridiculous. And centrist liberals are also playing along with this, for the record. Let's take a look at how mainstream media is covering the story.
This morning, police in Rhode Island are trying to piece together what led to these chaotic moments at a high school hockey game. Video capturing the sound of gunshots at an ice rink.
We have shots fired, multiple people down at the Rich Arena.
Bystanders racing to safety. Police say the shooter opened fire around 2:30 Monday, killing 2 people and critically injuring 3 others.
There was one lone suspect, that this was a targeted event. It looked like it was a family dispute.
Overnight, authorities identifying the shooter as Robert Dorgan, who they say also went by Roberta Esposito. Social media posts showing Dorgan discussing getting gender reassignment surgery and recently responding to attacks on a transgender congresswoman, writing, quote, "Do not wonder why we go berserk." Police say,
yeah, the media is also hitting the angry trans panic angle pretty aggressively, because it's not as interesting. It's not as interesting if you look at the actual full body of work here, right? It's dog bites man if it's another neo-Nazi killing their family, right? But it's man bites dog if it's a trans neo-Nazi who shot their family. Thousands upon thousands of posts talking about 1488, talking about how they're to the right of Adolf Hitler. And what makes the national news coverage interesting for the likes of ABC Today is the fact that they are trans and angry. October 6, 2025, that's okay. Trump will have his own Rushmore. I call it Trumpmore. My libtard neighbor called Trump a communist. Yes, they vote from 2017. They tortured Trump. Time to even up. May 4th, 2025. Take that, Trump supporters. In 2024. Obviously saying that sarcastically. Responding to Alex Jones in January 10th, 2025. Obviously anti-Trump, burning the country down, throwing a hissy fit. July 7th, 2025. Biden gropes every single thing he sees, but Trump's the problem, right? August 27th, 2025. Yeah, but Trump returned before Jesus. Ridiculous. This, in my opinion, is straight up an abdication of duty and responsibility. Of course, you're going to mention that the shooter is trans, right? That's fine. That's understandable. It's a unique aspect of their background. But the very fact that you do not mention that they're a MAGA Trump supporter and a neo-Nazi means that you're heavily invested in a biased framing that the right is weaponizing right now. At a time when trans people are completely under attack as a vulnerable population, they've been in the crosshairs of the Republican agenda over and over again. Anytime something happens, remember, we made sure that the weird trans folks, they can't play football anymore. They can't swim anymore, as though that's somehow solving people's material issues. Yeah, they also used to be a pro-Israel. And then they became a full-blown groiper, and probably around the second Trump administration, probably post-October 7. You don't see this shit in Israel because 14-year-old girls carry assault rifles in pizza joints. Fact. October 3rd, 2017. White Christian Israel equals chosen. September 15, 2017. So they were pro-Israel and obviously super pro-MAGA first time around. They kept being super pro-MAGA, became anti-Israel, and became a Nick Fuentes fan. Nick rules. December 24th, 2025. It's unbearable seeing this slanted coverage. It's insane.
It appears the suspect died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, adding authorities retrieved multiple firearms from the scene. They say one person tried to subdue the shooter.
A Good Samaritan stepped in and interjected in this scene, and that's probably what led to a swift end of this tragic event.
The gunfire erupted in the middle of a senior night game featuring players from several local high schools, including goalie Olin Lawrence.
At first, it was like bop, bop, and I thought it was balloons. But it just kept going, and it was actually gunshots.
As chaos erupted in the stands.
Me and my teammates ran right to the locker room. We pressed against the door and just tried to stay safe down in there.
Just over 2 months after a mass shooting at Brown University killed 2 students and injured 9. Rhode Island's Governor Dan McKee saying, "Our state is grieving again."
What are the odds of the person faked being an aside, either pretending to be trans or pretending to be a Nazi? I think the odds of both are incredibly low. I think this person was most likely, questioning their sexuality and their gender, because they kept saying post-op. So and also they are definitely a Nazi. They had a SS tattoo, okay? Not just the Totenkopf tattoo, but an SS double lightning bolt underneath the Totenkopf. That person is 100% a neo-Nazi. I mean, it's crazy. So they were very likely both trans and also a Nazi. And for the record, this is not unique. Ironically enough, right-wing media talks about transgender mass shooters, and so does liberal media every now and then, right? Almost every single trans shooter, both the one in Canada and the trans shooters in the United States of America, have been neo-Nazi groiper trans shooters. The problem is most people don't look into it beyond transgender shooter. They go, oh, this person is a transgender shooter. That's it. It's actually the most common type of shooter. If you were to look at the ideological breakdown of mass shootings and school shootings, you will find that the overwhelming majority, if not damn near entirety, of mass shootings and school shootings that have taken place are conducted by even black people at times, which is unique, right? It's still a black white supremacist, a groiper, a neo-Nazi. There was a female shooter, a school shooter. Again, unique demographic, because the overwhelming majority of school shooters and mass shooters are white men straight white men, cisgender white men. And yet what's not unique about all of these different demographic backgrounds of shooters is the fact that they are groyper neo-Nazis. It's people that actually go to these forums, become red-pilled, become black-pilled. They go to Telegram groups called Terrorgram in certain instances. This person obviously doesn't fit that profile. He's too old to be a part of that network. But in any case, very clearly, a person that went through that same pathway of radicalization, their transness is secondary to the fact that they are, once again, just like the overwhelming majority of these mass shooters and school shooters, a neo-Nazi white supremacist.
Never thought that something like this would happen, especially with kids involved. It's something I can't really wrap my head around.
And Pawtucket police say the shooter was attending the hockey game to watch a family member. A woman who identified herself as the daughter of the suspect to other local media said, quote, "He shot my family and was very sick with mental health issues." Local, state, and federal authorities, including the FBI, now on the ground and investigating exactly what happened. Craig and Hoda.
Emily Aketa Force there in Rhode Island. Thank you.
It's so crazy that the mainstream news is literally doing the mentally ill trans person narrative. Like, it's crazy how far we have fallen. This so close, by the way, to the MAGA guy in Texas that shot and killed his own daughter. Another MAGA dad. The fact that the very same people that were in the same spheres, trafficking in the same narratives as this shooter, are now once again turning around and saying, oh my God, this is because they're a woke transgender, is crazy. The only reason why they can get away with it, however, is because liberals allow them to get away with it. Mainstream media allows them to get away with it. Liberals could approach the story and go, here we go, another MAGA neo-Nazi piece of shit that did the unthinkable that is unfortunately all too common. A person who very clearly is in the Trump cult doing what people in the Trump cult do, behave in an incredibly unstable and insane way. And yet I saw, what's the guy's name? That centrist pollster, he blocked me. That centrist pollster who turned around and instantly claimed this is a good time to bring up the trans disapproval ratings in the country. Lakshai Jain was the one who put it out. But I don't know if other people are also promoting it now. I'm sure it's gaining a lot of fucking momentum. Yeah, the trans rights backlash is extremely real and very worrying for progressives. This is literally hours after people found out that the shooter was trans. Immediately, this dickhead. The trans rights backlash is extremely real and very worrying for progressives. The public is aligned with conservatives on several issues like sports, restrooms, and minors' access to care. It is possibly the worst issue for progressives if it's ever polled. Here's an example of how much ground progressives have lost on trans issues. In 2016, Dems won North Carolina on the back of the bathroom bills backlash. Those bills were quite unpopular in 2017. They are now 20 points above water. 52% for, 33% against. Imagine a self-described liberal centrist pollster coming out and being like, guys, Democrats have to drop this black rights advocacy. Sorry. Another black person engaged in a mass shooting. We just got to drop this. It's underwater. Like, think about how psychotic that is. And unfortunately, you don't even have to think about that hypothetical, because given the penchant for centrist Democrats and establishment Democrats and the consultancy orbit that revolves around the Democratic Party apparatus, they might start saying that shit too. It's all a matter of how little advocacy work they engage in. It is the most psychotic thing to do this. It is so transparent what this asshole is doing. They did this with immigration. They did this with trans people. They're still doing it with trans people. It blows my mind. The idea that like a singular representative is representative of the broadest pattern, that this actually means we have to stop defending trans people. Because that's the point here. The point that Lakshya Jain is making here is cut it with this trans shit. Put them on the chopping block. No more advocacy for trans people. We can't do that. No more transgender advocacy. These guys are too violent, or at the very least, the approach by the masses is that they're violent, that they're weird, that they have to be cut out from the public conversation. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous for two different reasons. Number one, if you claim that you're also no longer on board with trans people, You're not actually going to win any voters doing that. All you will do is normalize the anti-trans rhetoric, as Democrats have done. The polls shifting from being overtly pro-transgender rights to anti-trans is a direct byproduct of the Democrats' lack of interest in addressing this issue at all. That's number one. So it's already bad politics, because what comes after the sequence of anti-trans, trans-panic narratives is obviously anti-trans bills and a normalization of the claim that trans people are outsiders that no one should be protecting, and the bills that come along with that, you know, not allowing trans people to get like the proper medical care, for example. That's number one. Number two, you must look at the polls on the trans issue in 2017. Why was it that the public actually favored pro-trans rights back then? Perhaps it was because Democrats did not shy away from doing advocacy work. They didn't worry about leading on this issue. And that's precisely the reason why the issue was bad for the Republicans. The lesson to learn from this is not to concede on some of these culture war narratives, because concessions on these culture war narratives allow the Republicans to win on these culture war narratives, and they don't stop. It's not like the Republicans turn around and go, see, the Democrats actually don't care about trans people anymore. I guess we will be more normal about their trans advocacy. No, they just keep saying all you care about is trans people anyway. And this is not just about trans people, which are less than 1% of the fucking population. This is about every issue that the Democrats cede territory on. This is about undocumented migrants. This is about migrants in general. This is about white supremacy. This is about anti-blackness. This is about every single issue that the Democrats lose territory on to the Republicans because they don't counter message at all. They are not invested in advocacy work, and they consistently take a defensive posture, and that's why they consistently lose. They look spineless. They look hypocritical. They look like they were caught with their pants down. If Democrats ran on free college education for all, universal policies, then the Republicans would not have the opportunity to turn around and be like, well, I know they want to give you health care, but also they want to give trans people health care too. That's a far better strategy that would also protect trans people, because the conversation would shift away from whether or not the Republicans want to kill all trans people and the Democrats want to kill 50% of trans people to Democrats want to give you health care. Republicans care about silly shit. They care about 1% of the population. What are you, crazy? Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? It is that simple. Democrats need to do away with this running scared narrative. It's not good politics and it's not good policy. All it ends up doing is actually normalize the right-wing attitude on every issue. It doesn't win a single vote from the other side. And it makes the independents in the middle, and it makes the Democrats in your base think, okay, maybe the Republicans were right on this issue. It doesn't make them think, you guys have a reasonable approach. It makes the unreasonable approach that is championed by the Republicans look reasonable. And when the option is the diet watered down version of fascism versus the full thing, the real full strength fascism, people go, okay, if that's the reasonable approach and my Democrats that I voted for are telling me that's the reasonable approach, maybe Trump is not so crazy with this stuff. That's it. If the Democrats ran on healthcare, the conversation surrounding transgender athletes participating in high school swim meets would look stupid. Which one is a better argument? We're going to give everybody health care. We're going to give everybody housing. You don't need to worry about shelter. You don't need to worry about upward social mobility. We're going to offer that to you. Or constantly talking about whether or not 14-year-olds can participate, self-identifying transgender 14-year-olds can participate in high school swim meets. Which one do you think is a better, more reliable message? Republicans would look like silly, perverted weirdos constantly thinking about children's genitals if the Democratic alternative coming from the Democratic Party was, we care about fixing some of your material problems. But the Democrats don't do that because they're the controlled opposition party. Do you understand? The pathway to protecting our trans allies, our trans brothers and sisters, our neighbors, also revolves around class-first politics and class-first advocacy, universal programs. Because every moment that you spend defending universality in these sorts of programs is a moment where the Republicans have to attack that, force them to position themselves against the idea that you deserve health care, force them to position the Republicans against the idea that you don't actually deserve to have a federal jobs guarantee. Enough with this running scared narrative.